They trafficked heroin and ended up on death row.
I believe that the Lord has a purpose for me, and it's not here, and it's not to die.
Despite evidence that they've reformed, Indonesia is firm.
We are not going to compromise for drug dealers. No compromise.
Now they and their families face the countdown.
I can't see my son getting executed. He's young, he's healthy, he's a good man.
Facing the finality of the firing squad, welcome to Four Corners. After 9 years on death row, it's likely that Australians Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran will be executed in Indonesia for drug trafficking before this month is out. The Australian Embassy was told as much last Friday. Chan and Sukumaran were identified in court as the ringleaders of the so-called Bali Nine, who were caught attempting to smuggle heroin into Australia in 2005. Indonesian authorities were acting on advice from the Australian Federal Police. The other 7 are still serving long sentences, but escaped the ultimate penalty. In one sense, the 2 men have been as much at the mercy of Indonesian politics as the court system. Their various legal appeals and pleas for presidential clemency have failed, and the new president, Joko Widodo, under political pressure on other fronts, has firmly aligned himself with majority opinion in Indonesia in favour of the death penalty for drug traffickers. I'll talk shortly with one of President Widodo's legal advisors in Jakarta. But first, this report from Mark Davis, who has followed this story since the convictions and travelled to Bali again with the families and their legal team for the most harrowing week of their lives.
It's a scene that's played out by tens of thousands of Australian families every year, getting ready for the trip to Bali.
I think I would have gone over 25, 30 times.
Somewhere near 40.
40 trips?
Yeah, I think.
The Sukumarans are on a sudden and grim mission. Myuran, or Mayu, their son, their brother, has been on death row in Bali for 9 years. But out of the blue, 6 prisoners have just been shot, and it's feared that Myuran is likely to be in the next batch of killings, creating an urgency for Raji, Myuran's mum, to see him immediately.
We'll get to see him tomorrow morning. I don't know what to take. Normally he would ask us to bring things, and he didn't ask this time, so I really don't know.
Sister, Brintha Sukumaran, is packing the type of booty that she normally takes to see Myuran. It's going to be as normal a visit as she can make it.
There's a book, a painting book that he really wanted. Yeah. Don't actually know what this is, and I just went to a sports shop and I just picked it up.
So it looks like a combination of gym and high art.
Yeah.
These 2 books my aunt bought it for him. He has always told me to be strong, but he never thought about the execution or, what I should do after or anything like that. And I wouldn't talk to him about it either.
And this time, will you, or keep
away? Will, no, I will. I haven't given up, Mark. It's not going to happen to him. It's not. He's a healthy young child. Man. He's not sick. He's not a cruel person. He hasn't done. He hasn't killed anybody. Yeah. How can they take him and shoot him like that? They won't do that. They can't do that. No, you take him.
Myuran's extended family turn up to farewell the Sukumarans.
I can see you.
Some of them will be joining them in a few days. None of them want to say it may be the last visit to Myuran.
Just play for us. Okay.
The saga of the Bali Nine, arrested in 2005 trying to leave Bali airport with 8 kilograms of heroin, is familiar to all Australians. Their trials and tribulations, on and off death row, in and out of life sentences, cycles of appeals and remissions, captivated the nation for a decade. Ultimately, it was Chan and Sukumaran who were left stranded on death row, but with no apparent desire on Indonesia's behalf to actually kill them or anyone else. All that changed late last year with the election of President Joko Widodo. Widodo announced he wanted Indonesia's death row prisons cleared out by firing squad and pronto.
We are not going to compromise for drug dealers, no compromise.
So no relief for the Australian? No?
The official Australian response would be best described as low-key.
My profound hope is that these executions will not go ahead. What I'm not going to do, though, is jeopardise the relationship with Indonesia.
The desperate journey of the Sukumarans to save their son or kiss him goodbye is largely a lonely one. How are you feeling?
Nervous, really nervous. Don't know what to expect.
If he doesn't feel like talking, we'll just sit and not talk. So he doesn't actually have to tell me what he's thinking or what he's feeling. I just know. So
He's your big brother.
yeah. So I just know how he feels. Yeah.
I first met the Sukumarans while filming at the prison in 2010. Then there was still hope that the death penalty for Myuran and Andrew would not be imposed.
You're in an incredibly stressful situation, and yet you seem pretty calm right now. Is that how you're feeling, or not?
It's different day to day. Most days a little bit calm, but sometimes a bit stressful.
It's not a tough prison, though. I mean, amongst the inmates, it's not so tough, or is it?
I don't know. It's still a prison.
You got to be careful.
It's a prison.
Yeah. But I reckon I'd rather be here than Silverwater or something, though. And
Depends on how long and what's your sentence.
Yeah.
I'll take Silver over a death sentence.
Yeah.
She's going to go now because she said she's going to go take a look at the mattress.
5 years ago, Andrew Chan was upbeat, making the most of every day.
Here I am, I sit here and I study. People say I can't. I sit here in a death row sentence and most people turn around and go, it's a waste of time. I believe it's not. I believe that the Lord has a purpose for me, and it's not here, and it's not to die.
Both Chan and Sukumaran have a small circle of family and friends supporting them, but their plight has had a remarkably low public profile.
Actually, I need some...
As they sit here on death row in 2010, most Australians don't even know their names.
What I do ask for forgiveness on is probably the fact is, that I get a second chance, and that and people and I just pray that people can see that that I've sincerely changed. That's an important step. Is learn to forgive yourself, and that's how you can move forward. It's not just about forgiving others, but it's also about forgiving yourself.
Over several days, I filmed with Sukumaran and Chan, seeing firsthand their life in Supermax.
How are you, mate? Been better?
Had fun last night.
Yeah? Bad night?
No, full of fever.
Fever?
Yeah.
Bad one.
Yeah, breakfast is this.
Despite the harshness of prison life, Myuran has made the most of his time here.
Like before, it's like all this, like barbed wire. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's just like this is depressing to look at. Yeah. But now they've left it. It's very calming. And this tree I actually planted about 3 years ago. It was like little, and now it's like big. I wonder how big it's going to be when we get out of here.
Andrew Chan works out most days. He tries to stay positive despite his uncertain future.
I suppose you just got to be thankful in certain things, and I suppose I'm thankful that every day I actually get to wake up. I mean, I know that several thousands of people don't get an opportunity every day. You know, even though I'm here, you know, try and make the most of opportunities, everything. You got to start somewhere. You got to start today, and you know, maybe tomorrow won't exist.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what you're facing, though. Tomorrow mightn't exist. But,
well, that's it, but, you know, that's exactly the same for everybody else. I mean, it's a bit messy at the moment. At night, get locked up, start doing a bit of study, watch a bit of telly or something, who knows.
What time's lock up?
About 5. I like to be left alone, really, so, yeah.
You keep out of people's way and...
Oh, that's it. Like, I feel as though if it's not my business, why should I get into someone else's business? So
it's a good attitude in a prison, I guess.
No, I don't go sniffing around for trouble. I've got enough trouble as it is, as myself. So got enough trouble on my plate as it is. I don't need something else.
You got a lifetime's.
That's it.
Lifetime's trouble.
That's it.
We made it nice. They let us make it a bit nice because it's right in the front.
A life of trouble is what Chan and Sukumaran got when the media dubbed them the godfather and the kingpin of the Bali Nine.
So how did you feel about that, the way you were represented?
Oh, pretty funny. Most people that knew me, they knew how could this guy be? Like, you know, here I am living with my parents still. Like, just how many godfathers do you know still live with their parents?
I was living with my parents as well.
Yeah, that's what you were called in the media too.
Yeah.
Right? You were the kingpin.
Yeah. And Andrew was the godfather and I was the kingpin.
How did you feel about that?
It was pretty funny. At first they called me the enforcer, right?
Yeah, you were the tough one.
The enforcer, martial arts expert, yeah. I did three months of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training and I became a martial arts expert.
Although they can joke about it, it was these media tags that helped result in the death penalty for both of them.
So I've said the same thing to Mayu.
Yeah.
Whatever happens at court tomorrow and in the next 2 times we're in court, just stay calm.
Lawyer Julian McMahon is preparing Chan for his 2010 appeal hearing. He's been working for 4 years with a group of volunteer Australian lawyers trying to save the lives of Chan and Sukumaran.
Andrew, is there anything you want to say to your family in Australia?
Expectations are high that they'll overturn their death sentences at this hearing.
Saya memohon maaf kepada masyarakat Indonesia atas perbuatan saya yang telah menyuksakan dan agar
They both give their testimonies with their families watching on. Remarkably, the governor of Kerobokan prison turns up to give a character reference for them both and makes a personal plea for their lives.
Menurut secara naluriah, spiritual saya mengatakan, apa tidak bisa diampuni? Tuhan saja Maha Pengampun. Apa kebijakan negara tidak bisa mengampuni?
Despite the governor's plea, the appeal against the death sentence was lost. The wheels of Indonesian justice ground onwards to the firing squad, aided and abetted by the Australian Federal Police, the AFP. In early 2005, in the western suburbs of Sydney and Brisbane's Fortitude Valley, couriers began gathering around Chan and Sukumaran for a drug run from Indonesia. None of them, including Chan and Sukumaran, were the financiers or masterminds. It was a chance of a quick buck for a quick trip, as Sukumaran recalled when I spoke to him in 2010.
I was stupid. I didn't really think through the consequences or anything. Somebody asked me to do something and I just sort of did it because they were my friends and sort of I trusted them and I believed in them.
Like an endless chain of drug couriers before them, none of the 9 thought they'd be caught.
Look, you know, I think every criminal, what rushes to their mind, they're not going to get busted. Full stop.
And they didn't know that the AFP had placed some of them under surveillance. As head of the Bali 9 operation, AFP officer Mike Phelan explained to Australian Story in 2006.
The investigation into the so-called Bali Nine had its genesis in February of 2005 when we had a little bit of specific intelligence.
That little bit of specific intelligence grew considerably as the Nine finalised their plans to import drugs from Bali to Australia.
The simple fact is there is not enough evidence to charge people with conspiracy prior to that time. There was just simply not enough evidence.
Fatefully, the AFP made a decision to pass the names and flight plans of many of the couriers to their Indonesian counterparts.
The AFP were not aware of Sukumaran prior to us requesting surveillance, and he's the only person that we were not aware of.
As well as giving the names, the AFP were on the ground during the operation in Indonesia and present at the arrest at Bali Airport.
There was one Australian officer present. I'm pretty sure he was involved in the capture of us. He got straight on his phone and said, we've got him.
If the AFP had waited 6 hours of flight time, this arrest could have occurred on Australian soil.
I think it's a tragedy that we've got young lives that are potentially facing the death penalty, but I believe it was a successful operation. And taking 8 kilograms of heroin, which is a very significant amount of heroin off the streets, is a significant operation.
With an execution looming, barrister Julian McMahon lands in Bali to see his clients. He's tense and tight-lipped, clinging to a hope that the Indonesian courts will accept one more appeal.
Well, the last 30-something days have been a roller coaster. It started in December, really, and just picked up pace and got faster and faster.
Worse and worse, each twist.
So we're very much zeroing in on the rule of law at the moment as the most important option in front of us.
Hi Raji, good to see you. Hi Sam.
For their second day, the Sukumarans head off for their allotted time with Myuran. They're still hopeful that the coming appeal will buy them some more time with him.
How long do they let you in?
This morning we were there for about 3 hours. So I'm going back. By the time I get to the prison, it will be about 2 o'clock, so I might be able to stay for an hour.
So twice a day, a few hours a day?
Yeah, twice a day.
And just mostly quiet time, I guess. What do you do? Just sit and chat?
Sit and have a,
He painted my mum yesterday.
He did a painting?
Yeah, my mum.
Oh, okay.
He's doing my sister today, and then me tomorrow.
Yeah, Adam's from here. Lock the door.
Andrew Chan's family, his brother Michael and mother Helen, are making the same run twice a day to spend some precious time with Andrew.
Spiritually, he's in a good space. So, you know what, I think that helps him through this situation, and I think seeing him that way makes, I think, people around him a lot more at ease. Not that it makes it any easier, but I think it's a little bit more positive.
He's probably doing that for you as much as anything, right? If he's strong, he
well, that's exactly it too. I think, if I can see that he's coping as good as can be, and
you feel better.
It makes us feel a little bit better.
As I saw back in 2010, most of Andrew's time inside is spent on social work with many of the drug addicts there, and in the little church where he's become a pastor. It's the changes in Andrew that his mother, who hasn't been able to visit the prison often, gets to see firsthand in this horrible week. Close to the prison, Helen is preparing Andrew's next meal.
Mrs. Chan, what is Andrew's favourite food?
There's sang choy bao at the Mongolian.
In his youth, Andrew and his mother had a fractured relationship. Ironically, it's this week in the prison that she sees that Andrew has become the good man that she dreamt he would be when he was a boy.
每一日都去行佢個死亡之路，佢個前路茫茫，根本而家佢個前路佢都而家都唔知點樣，但係佢肯去面對，唔會話乜嘢去承認佢自己個錯誤，但係即係呢一點就係我最值得驕傲嘅咯。我覺得佢好踏實，而家能夠佢用佢每一天都去面對佢個死亡之路，即係唔係話即係哭哭啼啼啊，乜嘢嚟講啊？所以我呢次見到佢咧，我雖然係難過，但係我內心都係有一種平安。
It's an agony, right? An agony for you, I guess, too, because
you know, it could be, you know, every visit's a little bit closer to maybe
the last visit.
The last visit, to a degree, and
yeah,
you know, it's nice to see him, but you know, it's hard at the same time. So.
我梗係想求耶加達嗰個總統，佢可以大慈大悲咁樣，即係俾一個機會小姐阿 Angel， 等佢可以去改過佢個前路。點解印尼總統唔俾一個機會，即係唔俾一個機會佢咯？同埋叫印尼總統啊，即係可憐我哋父母心啊，因為我哋已經父母啊已經年老啦，體弱多病，亦都唔食得幾耐啊！我梗係當然係唔想見到我個仔行先過我啦，係咪？所以我真係但求望佢咧，即係能夠佢真係可以可憐下我哋一家人，憐憫我哋一家人，去俾一個機會俾佢去啦。
Back in Sydney, artist Ben Quilty is on his way to a candlelight vigil and concert that he's organised for his friends Sukumaran and Chan.
I thought I'm going to make this happen, and I'm going to make it happen before anything goes terribly wrong, so that those two young men know that there's people here in my community who care for them.
Quilty's nervous. He's only had 4 days to organise the vigil, and he's worried no one will come.
I'm worried that I won't be able to hold it together.
He knows the brutal truth. Many Australians don't care if his friends are executed. He puts this down to racism.
You know, there's a Morgan Gallup poll today that says 62% of them don't think that the government should prevent these deaths. Well, they don't know my friends. If you sit in front of these two young men and see their humanity and see how fit and strong and healthy and clear-skinned and clear-eyed they are and reformed and amazing and humble and inspirational, and then you have 62% of my country saying that they need 8 bullets in their chest, well, maybe I don't belong in this country.
Quilty met Myuran Sukumaran 2 years ago when he offered to teach him to paint.
Myuran stopped painting when he got the letter of rejection. I just said, come on, mate, what are you kidding? You're going to let this get you? Get back in there. Work. Keep working.
According to Quilty, Sukumaran and Chan have pushed ahead with their lives, albeit with a growing gallows humour.
Well, Myuran told me that he will be given the option of sitting down, lying down or standing up. And Andrew was joking that he said, oh, I'm a good smuggler, I'm going to smuggle some Kevlar into the prison and make a chest plate. I said, that's just going to hurt, mate. And he laughed, and then Mayu had tears in his eyes. He was upset, and he said, I'm going to learn how to do a headstand in the next month, and they can hit me upside down. And then when we were leaving the prison, I just felt very desperate. I said, I don't know what to do, mate, I don't know what to say. And I said, you should escape. And he said, I'd never escape because, he said, if I escape from here, all my mates in here are fucked.
Quilty has called on every favour he can to make tonight's vigil a success. Many actors and musicians have donated their time for the cause. Much to Quilty's immense relief, a good crowd shows up.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I was worried that no one would show up.
We stand for mercy.
We stand for mercy.
Myuran's extended family is standing quietly to the side, including his cousin, Dharmini Manivannan.
Honestly, at times it's felt a little lonely, but kind of looking out right now and seeing all those people, we know that they're loved and they're not alone. And so I know it's been hard. There's been ups and downs, but Mai's just been our hope, and he hasn't given up hope, so we could never give up hope.
Edith has 15 grandchildren.
Later, Dharmini helps Sukumaran's frail grandmother to the stage.
Today I come here to ask pardon from the President and the people of Indonesia to forgive my grandson and give him a second chance. I don't ask him to come home. I only ask him to live, ask him to give him life and let him do something in the prison. Don't kill him, please, don't kill him.
The last slender hope of legal recourse is delivered by Julian McMahon when he files documents for a second appeal.
How were they? How was Myuran and Andrew?
You either cope or you don't. Myuran's coping by focusing on his family and his art, and he's doing well. Andrew, in classical Andrew form, is in a prayer group with dozens of people, and they're singing and praying. And his mum's there, so he'll be looking after his mum for the rest of the day. The best thing that they can do at a profound kind of level is to be steady for their families, and they are. They're looking after their families, and they're doing what they do every day in the prison, which in Andrew's case is mostly around church and counselling and that kind of thing. And in Myuran's case is mostly around art and art-related activities.
Around the prison, indeed the whole island, is a growing realisation now that the death sentences could be becoming a reality, most pointedly for prison governor Sujongo.
So this will be your first execution in your career?
Ya. Ya. Yang pertama. Tapi sampai saat ini belum ada. Dan saya belum tahu seperti apa, harus seperti apa saya belum tahu. Tidak bisa meninggalkan kantor, telepon tetap harus on, karena sewaktu-waktu bisa perintah itu datang. Saya tidak tahu kapan, dan saya tidak tahu harus berbuat apa. Perintahnya saya harus berbuat, saya akan berbuat. Jadi ya sama mungkin. Kita sama-sama menunggu, sama-sama dengan pers yang lain, wartawan yang lain, selalu tanya, Pak, gimana kabarnya? Belum ada kabar.
Executions are foreign to Balinese culture and its Hindi religion, causing a growing unease amongst the Balinese.
Well, what do you think other Balinese people think? Do Balinese people feel uncomfortable with killing them?
So, I mean, so most of Balinese, they don't agree about the killing people.
Yeah.
For sure.
Religious issues aside, there's a concern that even if there aren't any consequences from the Australian government, there may be consequences upon Australian tourist numbers.
For me, I don't like it.
It's not the Bali way?
Yes.
Does it worry you that it will hurt Bali's reputation?
Because of the death penalty? I think so.
Yeah.
They will think Bali is not safe place again.
Hopes were raised at the prospects of another appeal, but before the court has even ruled, comes news that the government has added Myuran and Andrew to the list of the next batch of prisoners to be shot. Myuran's brother, Chintu.
You go from like 1 minute with hope, and the next minute everything just seems really dark, so your head's just bouncing all over the place.
It's devastating news for the whole Sukumaran family, who have now gathered in Bali.
So what happened?
The most heartbreaking response from Myuran's sister, Brintha.
We found out that someone had said, an Indonesian official had said that there was no chance of clemency, basically. And
yeah.
It's devastated. I really can't even speak. I'm lost for words. I can't talk. I can't understand why this is happening to our family. I love my brother so much. I don't want anything to happen to him.
I know.
I don't want him to die. Why is this happening to our family? What did we do wrong? It's not fair.
For Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran, 10 years of paying for their crimes, working for others in the prison, building a virtual campus within its grim walls, seems to have come to naught. These are the last images of Myuran filmed before cameras were totally banned in recent weeks by the authorities. Filmed tellingly by a Norwegian. In contrast to an apparent lack of broad interest in Australia, hundreds of Norwegian students have been coming to the prison for years, helping to pay for and build Myuran's prison training program. Among the handful of Australian lawyers and friends who've become his rock, one has become Myuran's favourite.
My favourite artist is Ben Quilty, so that's like what I'm trying to go, but I'm trying to get my own style, which is very, very difficult. Yeah. So like he's the one who taught me, and then my style very much reflects his.
Ben Quilty and fellow artist Matthew Sleeth have just left the prison to see Myu, quite possibly, for the last time.
Obviously there's a huge weight on his shoulders, and he's not the man that I met 4 years ago. He's a bit broken, but once he got into the work again, he was off and running.
Did you talk about the serious stuff today?
He just can't help it. He wants to talk about it.
He brings it up pretty quickly usually.
Yeah.
I think it's on his mind all the time, as it would be, and
yeah, he seems broken.
Doesn't want to be shot.
I was sitting there looking at Myuran today thinking, you're my friend, and I could almost conceptually put your funeral date in my diary. It's just the most revolting thing that I've ever been involved with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of barbarism to the death penalty beyond the act of knowing for 10 years it's going to happen and then knowing for days or weeks the date you're going to die. It's hard to imagine. I can't conceive of what that's about.
Quilty and Sleeth are perplexed at how they became the public face of a campaign to save the men's lives.
There needs to be feet on the ground. In my opinion, there needs to be feet on the ground, Australian feet on the ground here in Indonesia, in Jakarta. It's really serious. If there's nothing else that you'll stand up for, if you won't stand up for two young men's lives, what sort of a civilised country are we? What will we stand up for?
Myuran sama Andrew Chan.
At the Denpasar court on Wednesday, anticipation builds as the judge prepares to deliver his verdict on whether to accept one last appeal from Chan and Sukumaran. It's the end of a harrowing 10-year legal battle to keep the men alive. 10 torturous years for the families, and now one more turn for the worse.
We're all lost. We didn't expect this today.
No,
I mean, we thought, but we didn't expect it. He's a good person. He's just made a mistake. He doesn't deserve to go out like this. He's just made a stupid mistake.
A firm date for the execution of Myuran Sukumaran and Andrew Chan has not been set.
Even with the aid of hindsight, should the same set of circumstances present themselves again, with another syndicate or other people, we would do exactly the same thing.
Last December, Myuran told his good friend Ben Quilty of his fears about his last moments.
weird title pole, and they put a mark there and get shot.
Both dealing with it in the same way, do you think?
Yeah.
But Andrew's praying and he has faith.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you might want to get some faith?
I've been praying. I don't know if I have the faith or what, but I'm praying. I think everybody prays and it's close to the end.
The executions are expected by the end of this month.
The easy part in this equation is to acknowledge the havoc that's caused by heroin and other hard drugs in society. It's not so easy to contemplate in a civil, democratic society, the clinical execution of human beings by the state. Now to our studio guest. Professor Hikmahanto Juwono is head of the law faculty at the University of Indonesia and an advisor to President Joko Widodo on corruption issues. He joined me by satellite from Jakarta. Professor Hikmahanto, have all of the appeal options absolutely run out for Myuran Sukumaran and Andrew Chan?
Yes, I'm afraid so, because the Supreme Court has made an award. It is a final and binding award. Secondly, in order to make sure that there's no miscarriage of justice, the case has been reviewed, and also the two gentlemen has asked for clemency to the president, but the president has refused.
You know the president. Is this really more about being seen to be tough to a populace that wants the death penalty, playing with lives for populist appeal?
I'm afraid that is not the case. The president has said that he wants to be tough on drug smugglers, and also, as mentioned by the president last December, he said that Indonesia is in a state of emergency over drugs. And now Indonesia is placed on third rank in the world because of these drug users. So he wants to give a signal. Those who try to come to Indonesia and smuggle drugs, and even an Indonesian who produce drugs in Indonesia, then he will refuse any clemency if the court decides that this convict has to go to death penalty.
These men, these two men who are on death row, committed their crime 10 years ago, long before this president decided to get this tough on drugs and say no clemency. Their death sentence was effectively suspended under President Yudhoyono. Suddenly, this new president changes the ground rules. These men face the firing squad. Just their bad luck, a political lottery with people's lives?
Well, I don't know whether it is a bad luck or not, but probably you understood that President Yudhoyono is different from President Jokowi. Under President Yudhoyono, clemency is given, pardon is given, but under President Jokowi, because he wants to make the aspiration of the people delivered, his promises in his campaign, that he wants to be tough, he wants to eradicate narcotics, drugs in Indonesia. So I think he is adamant in saying that those who are convicted in drug offenses and they are given death penalty by the court, then he will refuse any pardon or clemency.
I suppose what I'm saying is it might be fair to argue that he's going to impose that for drug traffickers from now on. But to backdate that and to change, as I said, the ground rules of clemency as they were practiced by the previous president compared to this one, for a crime on which there was a conviction 9 years ago, strikes me as shifting the goalposts in a way with people's lives.
Well, unfortunately, the pardon or the clemency was asked under President Jokowi. It is not asked under President SBY. Even though under President SBY, there are some convicted persons who has to go to death penalty, that he refused any clemency. But under Jokowi, he has made a statement that those who ask for clemency will be refused if it deals with drugs and narcotics.
So when the President says no clemency for any drug trafficker who has been found guilty and given the death sentence, that means that somebody who traffics, in their case, 8 kilos of heroin is judged as harshly as someone who might run a major drug syndicate peddling hundreds of kilos. Is that justice?
Well, it all depends on the court who decide the case. I heard that from one judge that the convicted person, they are not only a regular, smuggler, but they have come in and out from Indonesia. So it all depends on the facts presided before the court, and the court has decided that these people are convicted of the offense, and it carries death penalty, and the court stated that death should be imposed. For Pak Jokowi, he does not know the detail of the case, but if being asked by the convicted person to pardon or give clemency, he will refuse to do so.
Yeah, in other words, he's not going to take into account any potential extenuating factors from case to case. It's just this blanket judgment from on high. You are one of the President's advisors on the corruption that's rife in Indonesia. There have been many cases over the years, have there not, of corruption in the judiciary, and I understand now that the trial lawyer for these men, when they were sentenced to death in 2006, has just this day publicly alleged that there was direct political and legal interference in getting that finding. Now, if he can back his claims up, the executions have to be delayed, surely, while these allegations are properly checked?
Yeah, but you have to acknowledge this is different, the corruption and then the issue of those who are smuggling drugs in Indonesia. Why? Because in the recent case, it was not handed over to the court. It has not been decided by the court yet. It is still ongoing process. While on the issue of drugs, it has been gone through the district court, to high court, to Supreme Court, and also to make sure that there's no miscarriage of justice, as I mentioned earlier, they have been brought to the Supreme Court and to review the case. And the Supreme Court has reviewed the case and still decided that they have to face the death penalty.
If the President's concern is about cracking down on drug use in Indonesia, as you say, why insist on the ultimate penalty for 2 men who were trying to take drugs out of Indonesia for use in Australia? They pose no threat to a single Indonesian life.
Still, this is a matter of the court to decide. It is not the President who have to look over and examine. I was going to say that the President, when he refused the clemency and pardon, he also got advice from the Supreme Court, because under our laws, that Supreme Court has to give advice whether the President will give clemency or not. And I suppose that the President has taken that advice, but he is adamant to say that execution has to go ahead.
Now, Professor, you must have a personal view on the whole issue of a death penalty. Do you personally, philosophically, support the death penalty?
Well, personally, I don't support the death penalty. But as an Indonesian, of course, I have to abide with whatever the law is. And secondly, because the pros and cons in Indonesia on this death penalty has been brought to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court has twice decided that death penalty is not in violation of the Constitution. So I have to acknowledge that and abide with that law.
Professor Hikmahanto, thank you very much for talking with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Incidentally, we did also ask the Australian Federal Police why the Bali 9 were not arrested at Sydney Airport on their return instead of being put in the hands of the Indonesian police and the Indonesian justice system? The AFP didn't answer this question, but they have provided Four Corners with a statement which is on our website. That's all for the program tonight. Until next week, good night.